Hello. I thought I might do a little demonstration of my drawing. Now, I penciled in roughly the lines that I need for this engine because I'm currently working on this motorcycle, and I thought the next thing I'd tackle is this area in here. I like to break it up in chunks. Everybody says that, and it's one of those things that is just solid advice. Never try to take on a whole piece like this all at once. Break it up into small pieces. Do each small piece separately. It makes it manageable. So the next one I'm going to do is this engine. And I know right now it just looks like scribbled lines. Hopefully when I'm done, it'll look like an engine. I like to use a rotring isograph pen. And this is a really dark area. Anytime it's a 90% gray versus over on the wheel or down here where it's more of a 30, 40, 50, 60% gray, I'll use a fine line like a 0.2. But anytime it's a 90% gray like it is in here, I'll use a 0.5. Always got to clean off the tip because I have a tendency to make a mess of that. And another piece of good advice that people always give is work from your darkest area out. And that's good advice. But for this, I want to get my lines as crisp as I can. So I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to put these lines in first. Try to get them somewhat straight. I mean, if they're a little rugged, I can always go back when I'm stippling and make corrections. Because these lines are pretty rough to begin with, so I'm not going to be surprised if they look a little rough when I first pen them in. But they'll give me a good guide for when I'm stippling. And I made those pencil lines right where I want my pen lines to end. And I'm not the best one for drawing straight lines. That's probably why I don't do hatching often. I always feel like my hatching would be a mess. I see some guys and they hatch these nice smooth lines and I'm always impressed by it. I think if I tried to cross hatch a whole piece, it would be a disaster. So I'll stick to stippling. Plus, I find it very relaxing. And I think you're either one of the people that find stippling very relaxing, or you're one of the people that find it monotonous and annoying. Ooh, that was a bad one. But like I said, I'll go in and make corrections later. Now those lines are there. I'm going to start working up to those lines with my dots. And like I said, I don't typically use a 0.5. I only use it for very dark areas. Because with the 0.5, you'll get a rough texture. If you see in the tire here, you'll get a rough look to it. And sometimes I don't mind a rough look. But on a gas tank or on the metal, I want it to have a smooth look, and you really can't get a smooth look unless you use a fine pen. At least I can't. I'm never going to tell you what you can or can't do. I can only speak to what I can or can't do. I know my limits. And once I get this really dark area done, then I'm going to go back through with my 0.2 and do the more subtle transitions. And like I said, I use a rotring isograph pen. I used to use, excuse me, I used to use microns all the time. And they're nice, they're cheap, like $3 a piece. And you don't have to worry about bending them or getting them clogged. You can just toss them. But in the long run, these are actually cheaper. The isographs are the ones that you can refill, and they're easy to refill. I like them because they have a really, really fast flow, where microns to me seem to have a slower flow, and it makes it easier to build up your ink. One important thing, if you're using these pens, make sure you're using a pigment ink and not a dye, and a quality pigment ink. You don't want an ink that dyes the paper. You want your ink to sit on top of the paper. That way you could actually take a knife and scrape off your little mistakes. And also, with that ink building up on the paper, it creates a barrier that you can use as a guide when you're filling in. Keeps you in your lines a little better. Alright. Now that I have that in, I can switch pens. Now, I didn't check how much ink I have in this. I might have to refill it. That would be the end of the video. But I'm going to start shading. And like I said, the one thing that's true is always go from your darkest area to your lightest area. So I'm going to start at the bottom to me, but the bottom of these ridges in the motor. Fins, I don't know what they're called. I'm not a mechanic. I know it's for heat. If I'm wrong about that, you can correct me. I don't mind. I don't claim to know much about machines. I had made a comment earlier that this clutch mechanism, I almost missed it altogether or drew it wrong. Luckily, I saw that in reference material and I corrected it in pencil before I started inking that area. This is the first time I've ever attempted to draw a bike, so not sure how it's going to turn out yet, but I'm hopeful. I think so far it's going well. And I don't claim that my technique is the right way to do things. I am in large part self-taught. I'm sure there's some classically taught pen and ink people that would look at some of the things I do and just shake their head. Like I said, I don't tell people the right way to do things. I can only demonstrate how I do it. And maybe you'll see something that you want to try. Or shake your head. Fair enough. Still don't know how much I want these to stick out. The more you put a dark value next to a light value, the more contrast you create, the more it will stick out. Like this piece here, I want to stick out, so I'm going to keep that almost white next to a really dark background, like right here. So with this motor, I got to remember how much do I want it to stick out. So that will dictate to me how far I want to go with shading it. And I'll just play with it. I'll do this first pass, take a look at it, see how I feel about it. And if I don't feel like it's working, then I'll do another pass. And every time I do a pass, I'll just build up the shading until it's all the right value. And that's something I usually got to go back through at the end of a piece anyway. You know, when I start getting done a piece, I'll go, well, I don't really have the contrast here that I need, so I'll add a little bit to this, and this will start to pop out. You know, just like that. So a lot of times, once the piece is done, I'll go back through. Like over here, I'll probably build some of this, darken this, make things pop, push things back. And that's the great thing about ink. If you don't have the dimension you want, you can always just add more contrast and bring things out. That's why I like stippling so much. It's so easy to bring elements out and push things back. And I will play with a picture a lot at the end to get it to pop. You know, for me, it's not about recreating something as much as I want it to be a good design. I want it to hold up visually. So at the end, when I feel like it's a good drawing, then I'll start taking a hard look at it and see what I need to do to make it a good illustration. And you might also notice as I'm going through here with this shading that I'm going to try to correct where some of my fins are thicker than others. I'll try to adjust that in my shading to get them more even. So that's a start. Like this one here is too thick. So I'll go a little heavy on that one. I don't want any of them to stick out. Like they don't seem. Yeah, this one's too thick. You can see I'm moving into a new area but going over the old area, and that's where I'll build up value. Then I'll also have to go back through and erase them pencil lines so I don't end up having what I would call false value, where the pencil makes it look darker than it actually is. Now these are where they're turning into the shaded area. So I want to make sure that I push that back a little bit. Now I'm going back through, trying to straighten it out a little so the lines aren't so rough. Now I can see where I have almost 100% black along here, and then like a 95 here, and I don't like that because this is actually supposed to be the darker area. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to darken this more. I'd rather it all be dark. That's better. I like that a lot better. And that's a little demonstration of how I work. And I'll keep uploading pictures on my Facebook page as I progress through this piece, because I'm as interested as some of you to see how it's going to turn out. This is the first time I've drawn a machine. It's definitely something out of my comfort zone. I'm more of an organic kind of artist, not a ruler and compass type person. I don't like mechanical drawing. I like to just freehand everything. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one turns out.